Harappan archaeologists have excavated a lot of evidence about the Harappan knowledge system, the system which was perfected or developed by the Harappans. And people are wondering whether this knowledge system is worth studying. And certainly we would say that this is very, very important because there is a lot of relevance of this knowledge system to the contemporary world, particularly to South Asia even today. And therefore, it is necessary to understand the relevance of the Harappan knowledge system. Most of the crafts that was developed by the Harappans, like pottery making, stone bead making, then the metallurgy part, the terracotta art, most of them have continued. And there are a lot of communities in India or South Asia who are following this Harappan knowledge system. And interesting, most of them are using the same technique as the Harappans have done. Some of them have forgotten the Harappan technique, and therefore some of the craft that is made today is not as refined as the craft made by the Harappans. For example, pottery. A lot of potters are making pottery today, but they are not able to achieve that status, that refinement that the Harappans did. So what we can do here, we have reconstructed the Harappan technology, the entire process of the pottery making, the process of pottery firing, and we have the knowledge about the Harappan technology in this respect. So we can supply this technology to those who are following this particular craft today to make their craft much better, much finer, and that will have much more value, both commercial value as well as social value. So certainly we can do that. In Khambat region, there are some craftsmen who are making stone beads. They are producing the replicas of the Harappan beads, and they still use the technique which was developed by the Harappans long back. So this craft, that needs to be kept alive. Otherwise, firstly we'll forget this craft and this knowledge system will disappear forever. And second, those craftsmen who are making these beads, they are doing flourishing business, because from all over the world there is a greater demand for the products these people make. So there is a lot of relevance in fact. Even the agriculture system that the Harappans introduced. At the site of Kalibanga, the excavators have unearthed the plough marks, the ploughed field, dated to around 3000 BC, 5000 years old. And there are furrow marks. There are some furrow marks which are very close to each other, or in one direction. And in the other direction, there are furrow marks which are quite apart from each other. And today exactly the same system is being followed. And it was noticed that the main crop is grown in the furrow marks which are close to each other. That is for the main crop. And the furrow marks which are quite apart in the other direction, they are used for growing some secondary crop. like maybe some horse gram, some oil seeds, etc. So Harappans used to take two crops at a time, and the same system, Punjab, Haryana, if you observe it, they are following the same system. So there is no, the relevance has not really lost with the Harappans. And even today the same type of maybe food habit has continued even today. I don't know how many of you know that Harappans introduced the delicacy which is being followed in major part of South Asia, and even that is very popular outside South Asia. That is called tandoor chicken. This is the delicacy which was introduced by the Harappans. At the site of Kalibanga again, the excavators have uncovered the actual physical remains of tandoor, which is exactly same as the modern tandoor. Rather, modern people have followed, continued that tradition. And also in the excavations they found some charred chicken bones. So this was very enough clue to indicate that chicken tandoor was introduced by the Harappans. Even Indian curry, the antiquity of Indian curry, which is so popular in fact all over the world, it goes back to the Harappan times. At the site of Farmana, we did some what is known as the residue analysis of the pottery, because when some substance is made or kept in pottery, earthen pots, it develops a thin layer inside which remains intact, and when you study the content of that layer, you can actually find out the substance. So we have done that. That is called residue analysis, and we found the ingredients like turmeric, then the remains of brinjal, ginger, and this sarso. So these are the remains which are found in that pot, and these are the ingredients of the Indian curry. So that means Indian curry was introduced by the Harappans. So that has continued even today. No lost of the tradition at all. Then I will tell you there are some from which we can learn a lot. Some maybe methods introduced by the Harappans, they are so relevant even today. I will give two examples. One is the example of the unique water harvesting and water management system developed by the Harappans. And this is found, this is excavated at the site of Dholavira. Now Dholavira, even though it was not a big city, not like Rakhigadi, Mohenjo-daro or Harappa, they were quite big cities in terms of size. But this site has produced very different and unique evidence of the Harappan architecture. And one of the important evidences found there is the evidence of water harvesting and water management. The site is located in the desert part today, and the climate during the Harappan times was not much different, maybe slightly higher rainfall, but still it was a desert part. And water was always a problem there also, that time, during the Harappan times also, like today. So what the Harappans did, they wanted to establish this particular city there at any cost, because Dholavira is located on a very important trade route from Sindh to Saurashtra, because Saurashtra has a lot of natural resources. So they had to establish particular city. What they did, in fact, they studied the geography of that region, the geology of that region properly, And then they located this city between two small rivers. One river is called Manar, the other river is called Mansar. And what they did in Pano, they built number of series of check dams on the both the rivers. And perfect, they built perfect city there. Very, very elaborate security system was made there also. So what they did, they built series of dams, and whenever there is a rainfall in the desert part, the rivers get flash floods, sudden floods. So Harappans arrested this sudden, this flash flood water, and they diverted the entire water inside the settlement. And inside the settlement, at regular intervals, they dug underground water tanks. Some of the water tanks are in solid rock, maybe 3 meters deep, 4 meters deep. And we wonder, how the Harappans have dug into solid rock, because they did not have iron or steel implements with them. They only had copper, and they had developed bronze. And we know that without the iron or steel implements, chisels, we cannot really dug into solid rock. So we wonder how the Harappans have done that. But the system that was developed by the Harappans still exists in many parts of South Asia. So what they used to do in Pano, they used to remove the blocks from the solid rock. And before removing it, they used to make grooves on the border of the block, deep and wide grooves, and they used to insert some wooden sticks in them and keep pouring water, because of water, the wooden pegs swell, and that cracks the stone. Sometimes probably they used to put maybe boiling water in this deep and wide grooves. That is how the blocks were removed, by using this particular technique. And a lot of people in South Asia are using the same technique even today. So that is the method which was introduced by the Harappans. That is also called the Harappan knowledge system. So that is how they developed number of underground water tanks. The city is divided into 3 parts. In each part there are a number of these underground water tanks. And then all the tanks were connected by underground water channel system. And the evidence which I excavated, the water channel is almost 7 feet high and 4 feet wide. So you can imagine, the volume of water that was flowing through this underground water channel system. There were tanks of different sizes. Even there were deep wells also. And they have made sure, Harappans made sure, that there is always flowing water within the city. So this system was developed by the Harappans. It is considered to be the unique system in the contemporary world. We don't find this type of evidence anywhere in the world outside the Harappan region. So this system is so effective, developed by the Harappans indigenous people, by involving the community for the development purpose. So this facility was developed by the Harappan people for the people. Today, there are very few settlements in Kutch part of Gujarat. because there is always dearth of water there. Between Dholavira and Rapar, which is the nearest town, 110 kilometers, there are hardly 4 or 5 villages, and people are not establishing settlements because of this particular problem. But if this system, the Harappan system, is introduced in parts of Kutch or in area anywhere in fact in the country where there is dearth of water, build number of check dams and conserve the water. Today the water problem is so severe. If this system is adopted, the entire Kutch will be a green land. So this is the relevance in fact. The system that was developed by the Harappans, it is so relevant. It does not really require foreign collaboration, does not require a lot of funding. This can be done by the people themselves. So this is one example which is so relevant. Then India's best gift to the world is yoga science. And do you know that this particular science was invented and practiced by the Harappans? In the excavations, we have found a lot of terracotta human figurines in different yogic posture, and you can reconstruct the entire yogic sequence there. So this was developed by the Harappans, and it has so relevance even today. So therefore, I say that when we study this particular culture, we always try to find out what we learn from them, how it is relevant today. And there is tremendous relevance in fact. We can learn how to build a nation from the Harappans. We can learn how to harness the community strength for the development purpose. If you are short of resources, how you can generate them and use that for your own constructive purpose. This is all learned from the Harappans. So it has got so much relevance. Some of the traditions that we follow today, for example Namaste, because Namaste has attained so much importance now because of the corona. This Namaste tradition also was developed by the Harappans. At the site of Kalibanga, there are a couple of terracotta figurines made by the Harappans, and they are shown in this Namaste posture. So this system, this tradition was developed by the Harappans. Then today the married women put sindoor in fact in the parting of the hair. Again at some sites, Harappan sites, we have some female figurine, terracotta female figurine, in which parting of the hairs you find the vermilion, the traces of vermilion. So a lot of traditions which are continuing for 5,000 years. Perhaps India is the only country in the world, maybe to some extent China, where we connect ourselves to the past traditions of 5,000 years, and therefore we immediately connect to our roots, because we know our roots are lying in fact in the Harappan tradition, so we connect immediately. And this knowledge system now, we are trying to revive that, some of the knowledge system which is lost. The evidence that we get from the Saraswati basin of the Harappan structure is slightly different from the structural evidence that we get in the Indus basin or even in Gujarat. Most of the structures in Gujarat are made of stone. That is the one which is locally available. Whereas in Indus region, the structures were made of burnt bricks. But here most of the structures are made of sun-dried mud bricks. And scholars were wondering whether the Harappans here in the Saraswati basin were economically poor, or why they have preferred to build only mud brick structures. Of course, there is evidence of burnt bricks, but those bricks are used only for building their drainage pattern or wells or the bathrooms, but not for building a structure. Now, there is a scientific reason behind that, and people should know what is the scientific reason behind this. The climate in the Saraswati is extreme. The cold, winter is very cold, and summer is very, very hot. And in this extreme climate, they have maintained congenial atmosphere inside the structures. Intentionally, they have built thick walls of mud brick, and as you know that the mud keeps the inner atmosphere quite congenial during summer. It remains cool, and in winter also, it remains warm. So this system was developed by the Harappans intentionally, and this is the most scientific way of maintaining congenial atmosphere inside the structures. Unfortunately today, most of the people are building concrete structures in that area, and they are suffering miserably because the houses are so, they are not really congenial, neither in summer nor winter, and they have to use a lot of air conditioning now. Sometimes it is not available. Electricity is a problem. So we are educating the people there, and we are telling them to go back to the Harappan system. So that is also very relevant, the Harappan structure that were built by the Harappans. They are so scientific, and we need to adopt this system today. The Harappan traditions have survived even today in major part of Harappan region. Particularly, we have observed this at the site of Rakhigadi. During excavation, sometimes when we have time, we used to go around in the village, and the impression that we used to get is that we are moving the Harappan village. There is so much similarity, in fact, in the layout of the settlement. The roads are exactly the same. They have used bricks for the laying of the roads. The length and the width of the road is exactly like Harappan measurement, not much different. There are structures on both sides, arranged in a way that the Harappans used to do. So we do find this similarity in their structural elements. Then inside the structure, you find tandoor, and exactly the same tandoors have been excavated from a number of Harappan sites, including Rakhigadi. So there is a continuity in that aspect also. Then, in the pottery making tradition, the potters are making exactly same type of Harappan pots. If you keep one Harappan pot and one modern pot side by side, it is difficult to recognize which one is ancient and which one is modern. There is so much similarity. The shapes are exactly same. Even the painted decorations found on them, they are exactly same. The method of manufacturing is more or less same. The firing technique is same. Harappans introduced fast wheel. People are using fast wheel. Harappans devise specialized kilns, closed kilns. People are using same kind of kilns today. The way the clay is treated is exactly same way in fact Harappans did. So there is so much similarity in that also. The food grains grown today, that tradition is continuing from the Harappan times. So there is a lot of similarity between the Harappan lifestyle, Harappan material culture, and the modern lifestyle, modern material culture. So there is a continuity in that for 5,000 years. How that has happened? People are wondering. What happened, after the decline of the Harappans? Maybe around 1900 BC or 2000 BC the decline starts. And there are various theories about the decline. But one factor which is common for the decline of the Harappan, or other major factor, major villain was climate. And we have done the climatic reconstruction in parts of the Harappan region. And we know that around 1900 BC, the climate has become dry. And this was not only the phenomenon in this part of the world. This was almost a universal phenomenon. We have data from the same period from Europe, from West Asia, from China, from Central Asia, and from India. And everywhere it is clear that around 1900 BC or 2000 BC, the climate has deteriorated, become quite arid. And that has got impact on the cultures. The Mesopotamian culture starts collapsing same time. The Egyptian, the Chinese, and the Indian, all the culture starts collapsing, declining at the same time. What is the consequence of this climatic change? Firstly, we notice that the major river valleys, basins occupied by the Harappans, Indus and the Saraswati, both are very, very fertile. In fact, they were the agricultural basis of the Harappans. And there, they were able to produce surplus amount of food grains. And if you want to develop from a rural society to urban society, you need lot of surplus amount of food grains. Because you have to feed lot of people who are not participating in basic subsistence activities. So that was done by the Harappans, because of which they grew. But now they were not able to sustain there. And therefore, what we have noticed, after 2000 BC or 1900 BC, the Harappan settlements are going away from these two major river basins. They started moving towards the periphery area, which was already occupied by the contemporary farmers. We call them Chalcolithic farmers or Neolithic farmers. So they went to western part of UP, they went to parts of Afghanistan, Balochistan, central India, Maharashtra, and since people were already there, probably they got mixed up with this population. And there probably the Harappans kept alive their technology, their tradition. And then from there, then it has continued from generation to generation, from culture to culture till today. That is how the Harappan traditions have continued. There is a misunderstanding that around 1500 BC the Harappan culture dies. That is not true. It disperses all over the country, and then of course it carries with them the cultural elements and maybe even language elements also. We don't know. So that is how we see on a greater part of South Asia the Harappan influence. The influence is found up to Bengal. Down south up to Tamil Nadu, we can see the Harappan influence. In the entire Balochistan, that part also. Central India also. Rajasthan. So everywhere you can see that. And in some regions, the Harappans have contributed to the development of the maybe local cultures there also. Like in Maharashtra, for example, the Chalkodi communities owe a lot to the Harappans for their development. Same is the case with Central India also, Madhya Pradesh. So that happens, in fact, after the decline. This is how the people slowly begin to disperse. And then of course the other consequence is that their trade starts dwindling. They of course they maintain maybe the hinterland trade with the communities in their proximity. But probably the long distance trade, maybe the sea trade with Mesopotamia, with Gulf, that ceased. And that the other important factor apart from agriculture, the other most important factor for the development of the Harappan civilization was trade, because through trade they were generating so much wealth. And they were plundering West, in fact. They were getting so much, maybe wealth from the West. In return, we don't find much evidence. So that flourishing trade had to be discontinued. And why that had to be discontinued? Not because, of course, the Harappan economy was dwindling, but the most of the ports, Harappan develops nearly 30 ports on Makaran coast, on Saurashtra coast, and these coasts were used for, they developed the ports there and used these ports for the trade purpose. So these ports became almost inland ports or inland sites, because around maybe 1900 BC, because of the drying up of the climate, drying up of the monsoon, the sea level began to go down. There is scientific evidence for that. Geologists have produced evidence in this respect. They don't know how many meters it has gone down, but certainly it has gone down. And even few meters, maybe 1 or 2 meters going down, can cause a lot of problem for the ports. They can become inland settlements. So most of the ports became useless for the Harappans, and therefore they had to discontinue the Harappan trade, and that was a major impact on the Harappan economy. Then we find the heavy concentration of the Harappan settlements in the Saraswati basin. Nearly two-thirds of the Harappan settlements are located in the Saraswati basin. That means Saraswati was so important for the Harappans. People of the early stage and people of the Harappan civilization, they had established large number of settlements in the Saraswati basin. And after 1900 BC, the settlements are going away from the river banks, away from the Saraswati basin. So that means now settlements are going away from the river bank. That means the river was losing its significance. Probably it has started disappearing. And that disappearance happened around 1900 BC, coinciding with the fall of the rainfall. So that also considered to be a major consequence of the changing climatic conditions. So that's how the Harappans, they disperse. And then their cities started disintegrating. They could not sustain the cities. And then they were broken into small settlements and dispersed settlements. And again the Harappans have gone back to the condition which was existing in the early Harappan stage. They developed into number of local cultures. So that nation concept started disintegrating again after 1900 BC. But they somehow survived in a decadent form up to 1500 BC. And after 1500 BC, the movement happened in different directions. So that is how the collapse of the Harappans happened. They did not die, of course. They just dispersed in other parts of the country. And then the knowledge system that they had, that was passed on first to the local people, then to the next generation, like that. And in India, probably starting from the Harappan times, we have a great oral tradition. Through the oral transmission, the knowledge is passed on. And even today, in parts of Rajasthan, there are a number of people who can remember the genealogy for 700 years, 800 years. They are not educated people. So that tradition, has continued from the Harappan times, not forgotten. So this is how the consequence of the climatic change happens on the Harappan culture. And this knowledge was passed on till the education system was established in Indian subcontinent. You may be aware that India has world's earliest universities, education institutions. Taxila, for example, which is in Pakistan today, that was the earliest university, built maybe around 3rd century CE or 4th century CE. Then around 6th century CE, the Nalanda University was developed. Both the universities continued till 1200 CE. Vikramshila University came up. So these are the universities where the traditional knowledge was taught. The traditional knowledge developed by the Harappans and the other contemporary population. Now the universities that I mentioned, now we have some textual records. Particularly, I can talk about the Nalanda University. It is mentioned that the university maintained very high standard. The admission procedure was very, very stringent. And the students and teacher ratio was really good. There were around 40,000 students, 10,000 teachers. And students were coming from all over the world to learn the Indian knowledge system, Indian philosophy, Indian maybe yoga tradition, meditation tradition, etc. So this is how the knowledge of the Harappans, which was given a formal status at some stage, went all over the globe. So I consider Harappan civilization as the global civilization, not confined to any country, though it is found in Indian subcontinent. Considering the contribution it has made, I feel that it cannot be claimed by any particular country. It is a civilization of the entire humanity, a global civilization. But at the same time, there are some grey areas also. But before I talk about grey areas, let me tell you also one important thing. The urbanization collapsed around 1900 BC. And then of course, there was some kind of a void till 4th, 5th century BC. Only in 2nd, 5th century BC, the second urbanization came into existence in the Indian subcontinent. But the knowledge of urbanization, how to build cities, how to build urban setup, that knowledge was existing. Maybe continuing from the Harappans. And when it came to the development of the second urbanization, this knowledge came very handy. And therefore, Indians could develop second urbanization very quickly. So that is also very, very important and relevant. And then finally I discuss about the grey areas. We still do not have the holistic history of the Harappans. Because as I mentioned in the early part, that the reconstruction is biased based on data coming from the Harappan cities. So we need to generate more data in that respect. We have initiated a new research methodology, the DNA research, archaeogenetic research in the Indian subcontinent. So that is a beginning, so we need to expand so that we can talk about the Harappan population, composition of the Harappan population. And this has to be done, the entire research has to be done by scholars from different fields coming together, multidisciplinary approach, interdisciplinary approach has to be adopted. And then only perhaps we can come to the terms of the Harappan history. Same is the case with the Harappan language and the script. Though I believe firmly that perhaps the early form of Sanskrit was developed by the Harappans. This is just a guesswork mainly because the Harappans were so advanced. And there were a lot of traditions which were developed by the Harappans, the knowledge system developed by the Harappans, that continues till today. I also feel that the language developed by the Harappans also continues till today. So that part needs to be really properly dealt with. Still, we have to have more data to understand the relation between Harappans and the Vedic culture discussed in the Rigvedic phase. There are some hints. which indicate that Harappans and the Rigvedic were one and the same. Because we have some information in fact in the text, information about the Saraswati river, the location of the river, mention about the sacrificial altars and the system, ritual system developed, mention about fire worship, description about the settlements, different categories of settlements. So we have the corresponding evidence in the Harappan period. So that is indicating that perhaps Harappans and the Rigvedic people were one and the same. So we need to work more on this aspect and settle this particular issue also forever. So we need to work, in collaboration with the Sanskrit scholars, the linguists, grammarists, archaeologists, historians. They need to come together and work on this issue. And then perhaps, if we are able to decipher the script, perhaps we will get more data, and certainly that will help us in reconstructing the correct and authentic history of the Harappans. So friends, in this lecture series, I was able to tell you about some of the unknown facets of the Harappan culture, or some of the lesser known factors of the Harappan culture, which you may not be able to find in books. So I thought that this knowledge system that we are talking, that is really very, very useful. And now we may be clear that why we call the Harappans as the founder of the Indian culture. I am sure that this is a good and useful for the students and the common people, and we also have to make efforts combinedly to preserve and protect the Harappan legacy, Harappan material culture, and pass it on to the maybe next generation, and then only truly we will be successful in talking about the Harappan tradition, Indian tradition, and the new generation will come to know about that. So I take this opportunity to thank the Indian Museum, the director, Dr. Chaudhary, Education Officer, Dr. Shayan Bhattacharya, entire staff of the Indian Museum for organizing this special series and giving me this opportunity to talk in little detail about the various facets of the Harappan civilization. Thank you very much.